It was a cold winter evening in Oxford. The sky was gray, and snowflakes were lightly touching the ground like whispers of forgotten stories. 17-year-old Lily Thompson had just arrived at her grandfather's cottage after school. Her parents were out of town, and she was to spend the weekend with her grandpa Edward, a retired historian and once a professor at Oxford University. Lily loved her grandfather's stories, tales of ancient castles, lost manuscripts, and wartime secrets. But tonight was different. As they sat by the fireplace, sipping hot cocoa, Grandpa Edward looked unusually quiet. "Grandpa," Lily asked, noticing his distant gaze. "Is something wrong?" He smiled faintly. "No, my dear. Just remembering." That night, while Lily was setting up her bed in the guest room, her grandfather walked in holding a dusty wooden box. "This," he said, placing it gently on the table, "belonged to your grandmother. It's been locked for 50 years. Lily's eyes widened. 50 years? Why now?" "Because you're the only one I trust with what's inside." She opened the box slowly. Inside were old photographs, a silver locket, and a leather-bound journal. As Lily opened the journal and began to read, her heart started racing. It wasn't just a journal. It was a confession and a mystery. The pages told the story of a woman who had hidden a priceless artifact during World War II, and the clues were spread all around the cottage. For the next few hours, Lily and her grandfather searched hidden drawers, under floorboards, and behind old bookshelves. The cottage turned into a puzzle room. With each clue, Lily felt closer to her grandmother, whom she had never met, and understood the pain and pride her grandfather had carried alone for so many years. Finally, at midnight, they discovered a hidden compartment beneath the fireplace. Inside it was a small golden compass, engraved with initials and encrusted with faded rubies. Tears welled up in Grandpa Edward's eyes. She was a spy, and this belonged to the last mission she never returned from. Lily hugged her grandfather tightly. "Thank you for sharing this with me." They sat together on the old sofa, the compass glowing faintly in the firelight, both silent but deeply connected. That night, Lily didn't just learn a family secret. She felt her roots, her history, and her love for her grandfather deepen in a way she never imagined. Moral: love doesn't always need words. Sometimes, sharing a story, a mystery, or a memory is the deepest form of connection. The morning light filtered through the lace curtains of Grandpa Edward's cottage. Lily sat at the breakfast table, the golden compass from the night before resting beside her cereal bowl. She couldn't stop thinking about the hidden story of her grandmother, a woman she'd never known, now suddenly alive through clues and whispers from the past. Grandpa Edward entered the kitchen quietly, holding a worn envelope. "I found this tucked inside one of your grandmother's old books last night," he said, handing it to her. "It's addressed to you." Lily's hands trembled slightly as she opened the letter. The paper was yellowed, the ink faded, but the handwriting was elegant and strong. "My dear granddaughter, if you are reading this, then your grandfather has finally decided to share the truth. I left something behind in Vienna in 1944, something I could never retrieve. It's not just an artifact, but a memory of who I was before the world changed me. If your heart is brave and your spirit kind, go to the address written below. The answers you seek are waiting. With all my love, Margaret Thompson." Lily's breath caught. "Vienna? She never told me about any letter," Edward whispered. "I always thought it was too dangerous." But the letter had an address, a flat in Vienna's historic district. "Grandpa," Lily said, her eyes alight with purpose, "we have to go." 1 week later, Vienna, Austria. The snow in Vienna sparkled brighter than in Oxford. Streets were lined with cozy cafes and ancient buildings. Lily and Grandpa Edward found the old apartment from the letter. It was now a small museum dedicated to resistance fighters of World War II. Inside, an elderly curator greeted them. When they explained who they were, the woman led them to a back room. "There was a woman, Margaret Thompson," the curator said, her voice soft. "She came here often in the early 1940s. She left behind a box with instructions to give it to her family, should they ever come." The curator returned moments later with a steel case. Grandpa Edward stared at it like he was seeing a ghost. Lily opened it. Inside was a stack of handwritten documents, photographs, a faded military ID, and most shocking of all, a black and white photo of Margaret with another man. Edward's hands shook. I don't believe this. That's Charles Whitmore, my best friend. Lily stared at him. Did Grandma love someone else? Edward nodded slowly. Before she met me, yes. He was presumed dead during the war. Among the papers was a diary entry. If Charles ever returns and I am gone, I want him to know I never stopped loving him. But if I am with Edward by then, I will be happy. He saved me in more ways than one. Edward sat down heavily, tears in his eyes. She never told me she still thought of him. Lily placed a hand on his shoulder. It doesn't mean she didn't love you, Grandpa. It means her life, like yours, was layered, complicated, human. Later that night, Vienna hotel room. Lily and Edward sat on the bed together, going through more pages, laughing at some of Margaret's travel notes, crying at others. It was a night of healing, of honesty. Lily no longer saw her grandfather as just the old man with stories. She saw him as a man who had lived, lost, and loved more deeply than she'd ever known. You know, Edward said, looking out at the lights of the city, I always wondered if Margaret had regrets. But tonight, I think she was exactly where she wanted to be. Lily leaned her head on his shoulder. And so are we, Grandpa.